Mom stood before 160 VIPs and disowned me. My only child is our brilliant architect, she said, glancing at my sister. Then at me. That shadow in the back. A disgrace. Dad muttered. Should have put her up for adoption. The room froze. I walked out and set my plan in motion. A week later, I always knew my family built facades bright enough to blind, strong enough to hide rot. I just never thought they'd brick me into the foundation of their greatest triumph. When my mother called me a mistake in front of investors, she thought she'd buried me for good. She didn't know I already had my hand on the detonator. My name is Willow. I'm 27 and I live in Chicago, a city that worships skyline gods and eats the weak at street level. My family runs an elite architecture bureau, white glove clients, glossy spreads, awards dinners where the speeches are longer than the buildings are tall. My mother is the CEO, immaculate hair, immaculate cruelty. My father is the CFO, charming voice, dead eyes. And my older sister, Chloe, is the company's miracle, media star, brilliant architect, the face on the billboards, and the mouth on the podcasts. My normal was being the shadow that made the spotlight possible. They taught me early that I was too much, too blunt, too quiet, too intense, too sensitive. Whatever word fit the moment, my mother would say it like she was pointing out a stain. Willow, you're socially off. My father would soften it with a smile. You don't handle pressure well, kiddo. Chloe just laughed like I was a quirky pet that did tricks in the basement. So, I stayed in the basement. Our office had a showroom floor with terrazzo and orchids and a receptionist who spoke in a whisper like money might shatter. Downstairs, the basement smelled like toner and concrete. That's where I lived. In the hum of fluorescent lights, doing 80-hour weeks, engineering calculations, environmental modeling, structural load paths, the unglamorous math that keeps pretty drawings from becoming funerals. I built eco-design systems that recycled heat, redirected wind, and turned sunlight into savings. Chloe collected the trophies. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I wanted peace, not credit. And for a while, that lie kept me functioning. Then we won the Apex. The Apex was a $350 million residential eco-skyscraper, Chicago's next shiny promise. All green terraces and glass curves and marketing language about a healthier future. When the tender announcement hit, the office turned into a champagne factory. My mother walked through the showroom like a conqueror. My father shook hands and said words like confidence and runway. Chloe posed in front of the concept rendering with that effortless smile that always made me feel like I was missing a human instruction manual. 2 days later, my uncle Arthur passed away. He was my father's older brother, the one they'd erased from family history like a bad line in a blueprint. Years ago, when the firm started making real money, my parents pushed him out quietly, ruthlessly. He didn't fit the brand. My mother said once as casually as if she were discussing a font choice. My father called him unstable. Chloe called him embarrassing. I remembered him as the only adult who spoke to me, like I wasn't a problem. He used to take me to construction sites when I was a kid. He'd crouch beside me and tap a steel beam and say, "See, it's not rigid. It's honest. It moves with the world." When my mother told me to stop talking so much at Thanksgiving, he winked and whispered, "The wrong people fear smart girls." I hadn't seen him in years. I assumed he passed away alone somewhere, and my parents would toast to it. Instead, a lawyer called me and said, "Willow, your uncle left you a trust fund and his patents." My throat went dry. "What patents?" "Composite materials," she said. "High strength, low weight, non-public filings assigned to you." I hung up and just sat there staring at my basement desk like it had shifted an inch to the left. I didn't tell my family right away. Not because I wanted to be dramatic, because I knew them. If they smelled money, they'd come for it with teeth. That same week, Chloe sent me the initial beautiful sketches for the Apex. They were beautiful, yes, the kind of beauty that sells. But the moment I ran the wind load simulation, my stomach dropped. There was a fatal aerodynamic error in her design. Rigidity nodes placed wrong, resonance paths ignored. Under a strong lake wind, the building wouldn't just sway, it would fail, fold, collapse. Not a hypothetical, a certainty. I sat there in the basement, the screen glowing like a confession, and felt something hot rise behind my eyes. Not tears, rage. Because this wasn't just theft anymore. This was a crime with better lighting. I rebuilt the design from the inside out. I used Uncle Arthur's patents because they were the best tools available and because I could hear him in my head. A building is a promise you keep, even when nobody's watching. By dawn, my corrected model held steady under the worst-case scenario. The apex survived the wind like it was meant to exist. For the first time in my life, I asked my mother for one thing. Not love, not approval, just a line of text. I walked into her office with the final drawings in a binder that smelled like ink and sleeplessness. Chloe was there, perched on the edge of my mother's desk like a decorative bird. I fixed it, I said. There's a fatal arrow failure in the original model. It will collapse. Chloe blinked fast. That's dramatic. It's math, I said. I corrected the rigidity nodes and integrated a composite system. It's patented. It works. My mother didn't even lean forward. She looked at the binder like it was a menu. And I want to be listed as co-author, I said. My voice shook once, then steadied. Just my name on the project, that's it. My mother's gaze lifted slowly, cold and surgical. Know your place. Chloe laughed under her breath. Willow, you're good at details. Let me handle the vision. I walked out before my hands did something they'd regret. The next morning, a glossy magazine hit the lobby. Chloe on the cover, the apex behind her, her smile polished into a weapon. The interview inside quoted her describing revolutionary rigidity nodes that came to her in a dream. In a dream. My nodes, my work, my basement. At dinner that night, I laid the magazine on the table like evidence. You take it, I said, too I'm tired of being polite. You're describing my engineering solutions like you invented them. My mother didn't even look. Don't be jealous. My father cut his steak, calm as a man who'd never faced consequences. You're going to ruin your sister's image over a few calculations. A few calculations keep people alive. I snapped. Chloe sighed theatrically. Why are you always trying to make me the villain? It's exhausting. I stared at them, the skyline glowing beyond the window like a silent witness. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. I'm not letting you erase me. My father finally looked up. His smile was soft, almost kind. That's how you know it's dangerous. Keep pushing, he said quietly. And we'll get you help. What help? I asked. Even though dread already climbed my spine, he set down his fork. A psychiatric evaluation, guardianship if necessary. You've been unstable for years, Willow. We have documentation. My mother dabbed her lips with a napkin. Don't force us. Chloe tilted her head. We'd be helping you. You get emotional. I felt the room tilt, not because I believed I was unstable, but because I understood how easily they could make other people believe it. My mother knew boardrooms. My father knew paperwork. Chloe knew cameras. Together, they could turn a lie into a diagnosis and a diagnosis into a cage. So, I did what I'd been trained to do. I went quiet. Silence is my family's favorite shape of obedience. But silence can also be a blade if you sharpen it. I used Uncle Arthur's money as like a match in dry grass. I hired auditors, real ones, the kind who don't flinch when you ask them to peel back a company's skin. I stopped thinking of my family as family and started seeing them as a structure with hidden cracks. The reports came back ugly. My father was drowning in toxic debt. Loans stacked on loans, losses buried, vendors paid late, numbers massaged until they looked like success. Chloe's past projects, her visionary disasters, had bled the firm for years. The Apex wasn't just a dream project. It was a life raft. The only thing big enough to convince creditors to stop asking questions. My family wasn't powerful. They were desperate. And desperation makes people sloppy. I built my trap the way I built buildings from the foundation up. First, I formed an anonymous holding company. Clean, quiet, hard to trace on purpose. Through it, I patented every real engineering solution used in the viable Apex design. Rigidity nodes, composite integration, structural pathways, not the pretty curves, the bones. Then I went after my father's weak point, debt. Through intermediaries, I bought his delinquent loans at a discount from creditors who wanted cash more than pride. Paper became power. Obligations became leverage. The news tightened, one signature at a time, and my father had no idea his own rope was braided from his arrogance. All I needed was a trigger. The day before the gala, I walked into my mother's office with the final drawings, the ones that kept the Apex standing. Tomorrow, I said, you present the Apex to the city. You will say Chloe's name, you will say yours, and you will say mine. My mother's mouth curved into a laugh, light and dismissive. Willow, Sweetheart, you're spiraling again. I'm offering you a clean exit, I said. Recognize me tomorrow or you lose everything. Chloe snorted. Please, what are you going to do? Post a sad thread online. My mother leaned back, eyes glittering with contempt. You can barely handle a dinner conversation. You want a stage? Don't be ridiculous. I held her gaze. Last warning. She waved her hand as if shooing a fly. Know your place. I nodded like I agreed. I walked out with my pulse steady because the detonator doesn't tremble. The gala was at the Museum of Contemporary Art. Glass walls, white stone, minimalist wealth. There were 160 VIPs, investors, donors, city officials, developers, the kind of people who smell profit like sharks smell blood. Cameras floated. Laughter clinked against champagne. The model of the apex stood under a spotlight like a holy object. Chloe glided through the crowd in a white dress that looked designed to photograph well. My father shook hands and spoke in numbers. My mother moved like the room belonged to her. And I stood at the back exactly where they liked me, visible enough to be humiliated, distant enough to be ignored. The lights dimmed. My mother stepped to the microphone, her voice smooth as poured wine. She talked about legacy, about vision, about how the apex would redefine Chicago living. She smiled at Chloe like she was gazing at the future. Then she turned her gaze and found me like a hunter finds a weakness. Mom stood before 160 VIPs and disowned me. My only child is our brilliant architect, she said, glancing at my sister. Then at me. That shadow in the back, a disgrace, Dad muttered. Should have put it up for adoption. The room froze. I walked out and set my plan in motion. A week later, my family sat in a glass conference room on the 50th floor of a downtown tower, ready to sign the contract that would release the first $100 million for the apex. The main investor sat at the table with his legal team, calm and unreadable. My mother wore a suit the color of authority. Chloe wore a smile like a mask glued to her face. My father had his pen poised like he was about to sign away his sins. They were so close to salvation, they could taste it. Then the doors opened. I walked in with two corporate attorneys, quiet professionals with expressions that said they'd seen worse families than mine and survived. My mother's face hardened. What is she doing here? The investor's lawyer didn't look at her. Ms. Willow is part of this meeting. Chloe's voice went high. This is mistreatment. I placed a folder on the table, thick, clean, heavy. It's engineering, I said. And paperwork, the things you hate because they don't care about your brand. My attorney connected a laptop to the screen. First, a 3D simulation of Chloe's original apex structure. The model stood tall for a moment, gorgeous in its digital glow. Then, we increased the wind load. The building began to sway wrong. Too fast, too eager. The resonance hit. Notes failed. The tower folded like a lie, collapsing under its own weight. Chloe's breath hitched. That's manipulated. Second, my corrected design. Same wind, higher load. The structure flexed, absorbed, stabilized, alive, resilient, safe. I looked at the investor. The version my sister sold you will collapse in a strong wind, I said. It will end people. It will bury you in lawsuits, and it would have been built under her name. The investor's eyes moved finally to Chloe. Is this accurate? Chloe swallowed. She's unstable. She's always my father cut in fast, voice slick. This is a family drama, not relevant to my attorney slid forward patent filings. These are relevant, she said. All engineering solutions that make the viable apex design possible are patented to our client's holding company. Any construction using them without licensing constitutes intellectual property theft. My mother's lips parted. Holding company? I gave her a small smile. Anonymous, I said, like the people who own this city without putting their names on the buildings. My father stood up abruptly, chair scraping. This is extortion. I handed him a single sheet of paper. He read it once. The color drained from his face so fast, it looked like a magic trick. What is that? My mother demanded. My father's mouth moved. No sound came out. It's a margin call notice, I said softly. Because I bought your delinquent loans. I own your debt, Dad. And I'm calling it. Chloe's eyes widened, panic spilling out. You can't? I can, I said. You signed it. You hid it. You missed payments. Someone bought it. My father's hand shook. Willow, listen. No, I said. You listen. You warned me to put me under guardianship because I asked for credit. So now I'm giving you the only kind of help you understand. Consequences. My mother leaned forward, voice low and furious. What do you want? There it was again. No, I'm sorry. Not. Why did we do this? Just what do you want? I turned to the investor. The project continues only under my leadership. I said I will become sole owner and chief architect. My family exits the firm permanently. No advisory titles, no consultant pity roles. They leave. Chloe's mask finally cracked. She started to cry. Not quietly. Ugly. Desperate. Willow, please. I can be a consultant. I can tell them you helped. I stared at her. You called my work a dream. My mother snapped. If you do this, you destroy the family. I met her eyes. You destroyed it, I said. I just didn't think I counted. My attorney slid forward another file. And if you contest this transfer, she added politely, we have documentation of financial misrepresentation that would become part of discovery. My father made a sound like he'd been punched. My mother froze. For the first time, I saw fear flicker behind her eyes. Not fear of losing me, but fear of losing her freedom. Fear of headlines she couldn't spin. The investor spoke at last, voice calm, decisive. We cannot proceed with the current structure, he said. He looked at me. If your claims are verified, we proceed only under you. My mother's jaw tightened. Her pride wrestled with her survival instinct, and survival won. She signed the transfer papers. Her hand didn't tremble. Mine didn't either. Chloe slid out of her chair like she'd been unplugged, sobbing into her hands. My father sat down slowly, staring at the margin call notice like it was a death certificate. When it was done, my attorneys gathered the documents. The investors' team stood, already shifting their attention to the future, the version of the apex that wouldn't collapse. My family stayed in their seats, stunned, stripped of the story they'd told themselves for years, that they were untouchable. I walked to the window and looked out at Chicago. Morning light poured between buildings, turning glass into fire. The city looked indifferent, as it always does. It doesn't care who you are. It only cares what stands. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt balanced, like the moment when a structure finally aligns, when the load is distributed correctly, when the stress stops screaming through the joints. Behind me, my mother's voice came out thin. So, this is what you wanted. I turned. She looked smaller without her crowd, without her microphone, without the illusion that humiliation was power. You were right, I said. I am a shadow. Her eyes narrowed, suspicious, waiting for the twist of a blade. I stepped closer, voice quiet enough to make her lean in. But you forgot the most basic rule of architecture, I said. The higher and brighter you build your facade, the longer and darker the shadow becomes. She stared at me, and for once, she had nothing. I nodded toward the table, toward the papers, toward the life raft that had become mine. The apex will stand, I said. Not because Chloe smiled for cameras, because I built it to survive the wind. Then I looked at my father, still frozen, and I let the silence does what it always did in our family. Pressurize the truth until it cracks. I'm not unstable, I said softly. It was just inconvenient. I left them there in their glass room, surrounded by a skyline and consequences. And when I walked out into the bright Chicago morning, I didn't feel like a disgrace. I felt like the only honest thing in a city full of facades.